Welcome back to Introduction to Engineering Design. This is Module 5.2, and we're talking about some geometric constraints that we can apply in sketches, and these constraints also apply in general terms when we do assemblies. So we've done some assemblies before, but let's talk about constraints for the first time here. So to get started, let's go on a new part. And while that's starting up, we'll just talk a little bit about constraints. Within your sketches, there's a lot of features that Solidworks has, or I shouldn't use the word features. There are a lot of constraints, geometric constraints, that are applied as you sketch within Solidworks, and I'll show you some of those. So let's just start out, and we're going to start with a new sketch, and I'll just choose the front plane. You've seen me do this a million times thus far. We have our origin right here. This little orange dot that we get is the indication that we are going to be coincident with whatever we put on that dot. So let's start out with a line. If I hover a line over the origin, I get the dot. And what that does is it makes it coincident. Now you'll see the glyph, the yellow glyph that shows up for parallel and vertical. So if I go and drop a line, that glyph appears green underneath the line, along with the coincident mark. So there's my coincident mark and my green glyph showing parallel. So you'll see that SolidWorks is very good about dropping these in, and it gives blue reference lines that will tell you, in this instance, that if I click and drop my line where my cursor presently is at, it will make a spot or an end point on that line that is perfectly vertically above my origin, in the origin of that line. So now I've made several different lines here, and you can see that I've got these glyphs. So let me right click and select so I can get out of that, and you can see that I've basically got a vertical, and a horizontal, and a horizontal. And the net effect of that is if I start to grab this square, I can move these and I maintain relationships. You'll notice I move left and right, but I can't move up and down. I have to grab the top, I can move up and down. And on this bottom line, since I made it coincident and I made it horizontal and perpendicular or vertical, I can't move that line. Let me come over here and click on this particular glyph, which is indicating coincident with the origin, and let me delete that. Now you'll see that I can in fact move this around, and as I drag a corner, I grow and decrease. So let's take another one of these, and all I'm going to do is click on it and delete it. And now you'll see that I took away that need for that particular line to be horizontal. And you can see how I can move that point up and down and all around. It's still got four sides. It is still a quadrilateral, but it's no longer a parallelogram. And even if I drop it so that it's horizontal, until I apply a horizontal restriction to it, it doesn't occur. So let's go and look at this, and let's talk about some different things that we can do. If I click or select a line, you'll see what comes up here is I've got some options here, and I can apply a geometric constraint. And there I just applied the horizontal. So that's neat. Let's go ahead and left click, select everything, and delete it, even though we don't like to do that too much in sketching. We're going to do it for this exercise. Let me pick a corner rectangle, and I'm going to intentionally stay away from giving it a coincident spot. I'm just going to click and drag, and you'll notice that it did all of these relationships just as I mentioned. So I've got a parallel to the horizon and a vertical line on each corner. Now I can force some things to happen also with lines. So let me click and put a line and drop it, and just drop it anywhere off of the horizon. And I'm going to come down and go 90 degrees. Now that is the indicator right there for perpendicular. So 90 degrees, and I'm going to go 90 degrees again. And then I'm going to go ahead and right click for select. I'm going to draw a line underneath of here, and I'm going to approximate the same shape here. But I'm not going to make it perfect. Right click, select. I can do some things to make two lines, so I'll click my first line, and then I'll click my second line, and you'll notice that over in my properties tree here, I get a bunch of properties, and I can click and make those parallel. You'll notice that I see the 4 and the 4 appear, meaning that this line is parallel to that line. I can also make them equal length by clicking on the equal symbol, and now they're of equal length. So now let's look at what happens when I start to move things around. If I move this line back and forth, you'll notice what's going on here. You'll see how those two relate, and also when they go parallel, if I move it back and forth this way, those two lines always stay parallel regardless of what happens, and perpendicular. So let me go ahead and apply a perpendicular constraint and show you another way to do that. I can display delete relations, so I can add a relation, and then I'm going to click my entities. So I'm going to go ahead and click this and that and make these so they are perpendicular. And then I'm going to click this and that and make them perpendicular. Now you're not going to use an awful lot of these. Right click, OK. You're not going to use an awful lot of these when you're sketching unless you're making a complex sketch, which we recommend you don't do. But a couple that you will use occasionally these equals, and you probably will also use some parallel lines in your sketches just to make it fairly simple. So let me go ahead and delete these once again. Let me show you one more. This one is quite common. So let's say that I'm going to make a box. And I'm just going to sketch a shape, a fairly simple shape. And there are several ways that I can make this same feature, but I'm just going to show you a use for geometric constraints and walk through. Right-click, select. You'll notice that we're coincident with our origin. We're horizontal, vertical, vertical, horizontal, horizontal, vertical, vertical, horizontal. But let's say that I always wanted to make sure that our two sides here were of equal size. Equal size. So one of the ways I could do that is I could either click the first line and then Control-click the second line and add my relationship over here. So I could make them equal, and now they'll be of equal length. So you'll see that as this grows, they'll grow together, and they stay the same size. Now the other thing I could do, let's say that I didn't draw it quite right, but I said, hey, these are always going to be on the same plane. I could go ahead and click on Add a Relation, and I'm going to click on my first line, and then my second line, and I'm going to use collinear. And what I just did was I made my second line collinear with my first line. This little dashed line between the two is the indicator for that. Let me right-click, go OK, and now you'll see that as I move this up and down, those lines always stay together. So sometimes you'll see some use for that. One other one that I want to show you that you probably won't use an awful lot, but that's the idea of tangent. So let me draw a circle. Any circle, excuse me. And if I add a relation here, and I choose my arc, I can come over and choose a line, and I can add the tangent relation. Now what that tangent relation does is it makes it so that this line cannot be moved, or this circle cannot be moved off of a tangent condition with the line that I aligned it to. Very handy when you're using block sketches and you're doing concept sketching. So today what we talked about here is we talked about parallel, vertical, some of the ones that automatically go in, a coincident geometric constraint, collinear. We've also talked about tangency. The other ones that we can talk about here real quick is if I just draw any line, and I can click on Add Relations, and it'll show the relations that I am capable of adding to a line, or to a circle, or to another line. And you'll see that the more objects I select, the less things that I can do. And we have this fix. Fix is essentially exactly what it looks like, an anchor. So I'll click on OK. Once I put that anchor in, it's not moving. It's just like putting it, attaching it coincident to the origin. It doesn't move. Now the lines that I did not fix, those will move. but the lines that I fixed turn black and won't move. All right, that's an introduction to geometric constraints. Welcome back to Activity 5.2a in Introduction to Engineering Design. Thanks.